Hello. Hope you're doing well. Happy Super Bowl Sunday. I will not be watching the Super Bowl this year. I didn't watch it last year either because I'm tired of the Kansas City Chiefs, and I am especially tired of the Chiefs this year. I want nothing to do with this whole Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift narrative. I couldn't care less. It's actually very annoying to me. I think it's annoying that people in the industry don't understand why people find it annoying. And I will not be watching the Super Bowl. Maybe the end of it, but I can't put up with the phony bullshit narratives anymore. It's just so tired and boring, and I can't do it. I'm tired of the Chiefs. I'm tired of the favoritism with them and just tired of all of it. So I won't be watching. I will be wholeheartedly rooting for the San Francisco 49ers. I'm actually a Seahawks fan, and the 49ers are in the same division, so I know it's like heresy to say that you're a 49ers fan. But I tend to be a fan of players, you know. I mean, football and sports in general, I don't really understand the blind loyalty toward a hometown team. The players that play for your team, they don't care where they play. They're just there for the money. So I don't understand the blind loyalty to home teams. It's just dumb to me. I like players, I like franchises, I like coaches, and I like the 49ers. I like them. I think they're a team full of personalities and tons of talent, and I hope they absolutely fucking obliterate the Kansas City Chiefs. Fuck the Chiefs, and I'm going to leave it at that. So today I'm going to talk about my last question that I posed to people in my community. The question was guilty pleasures. I've let it sit there for a good week now, and I got, I don't know, maybe 10 responses. Not a ton of people responded. Someone, Izillarad, actually pointed this out to me that not everyone is getting, maybe nobody is getting notifications for these questions I post. You should be getting them, but people aren't getting them. And I don't know how to fix that. I don't get notifications myself. The vast majority of the time when people comment on a video I make, I don't see comments. I should, like, every once in a while, I'll get a notification that someone just left a comment. But I would say at least 50%, maybe more. I think more actually. I'm not getting notifications. I have to go into my YouTube studio and check my comments, and all of the ones I haven't responded to will pop up at the top. So that's the only time I'm able to notice that comments get left. I apologize if I delay in responding to your comments. Sometimes a comment will be there for 3 or 4 days. I just don't see it. I should be seeing it. YouTube should be showing me these things, but they're not. So I apologize for that. And I'm sorry if you're not seeing the notifications for my questions that I post, these text polls. It sounds like people aren't knowing about these. So if I ask questions in the future, um, I'll post the question, but in a text form, but I think I'll also do a little video too. I don't like cluttering up my video feed with, you know, two minute videos asking a question. I don't want to do that. I'd rather just post it in a text form. So maybe I'll post the question as part of another video I do. I don't know. Sorry if you're not getting the notifications. I know some people aren't getting them. But let's get into my most recent question, guilty pleasures. I don't really believe in guilty pleasures. One of you guys mentioned that I should do this, and I thought it was an interesting idea, so I pointed it out and asked the question. But I don't know if you like music and you're into music, is there any such thing as a guilty pleasure? You just like what you like. But some of you came up with some really good ones, and I would agree. Like, I think a good barometer is like if you're driving down the street and you're blasting music out of your car and you roll up next to somebody and their window's down, or you roll up to a pedestrian and they're on the side of the road. Of course they'd be on the side of the road. Where else would they be? But if you pull up next to a pedestrian, if you were playing a song, would you be embarrassed if they heard it? That's a good barometer. And some of you came up with some really good ones. Because there are times when I'm playing music in my car, I guess, and someone, if I know someone can hear it, I'll turn it down a little bit because I'm like, oh fuck, I don't know that I want to be projecting to the world that I'm listening to this right now. I mean, 99.9% of everything I listen to it with pride, and I'll blare it, and I don't give a shit who hears. But there are a few, and you guys came up with some, and I appreciate it. So let's get into this. And I'm going to be pulling these up. I'll post the comments right here. You should be able to see them like in this area here. The first one is Sexplosion. Uncle Fucker said Sexplosion. Because I loved how Thrill Kill went on the sleazy disco side. I don't know. Is that a guilty pleasure? I don't think it is. I listened to that album with pride. In fact, Uncle Fucker, you must have seen my or Funker, whatever the fuck it is. Uncle Fucker. I like that one better. As a huge South Park fan, I'm going to say Uncle Fucker. I love Sexplosion. I feel zero embarrassment. I blast that album with pride. I wouldn't care who heard it. I think Thrill Kill is their. I think Sexplosion is Thrill Kill's best album. Did you? I made a video about this. I'm assuming you saw it. I don't know. I have absolutely no qualms or embarrassment regarding Sexplosion. I think that's a really good album. I think there are other Thrill Kill albums that could be guilty pleasures, like anything they've done since Sexplosion, but I don't listen to that stuff. So that wouldn't be a guilty pleasure. This one from 992. Again, I can't say people's names or comments get disabled. I love Sheck Wes's Mo Bamba track. Up until before COVID, my girlfriend and I would go to a big gay club, pop capsules, and party. I eventually became okay with a lot of commercial music. That's interesting you say that. I mean, I used to DJ when I first started DJing in the 90s. I would DJ gay clubs, and those were the best clubs actually to play experimental music at. I don't know. I generally would enjoy DJing at gay clubs much more because there's less posturing. People were there to have fun, and you could play anything. It was less commercial in my experience, but maybe that differs from town to town and city to city. I don't know. I had never heard of Sheck West until you mentioned this. And I looked up all of these songs if I hadn't heard them before. I listened to Mo Bamba. I thought it was awful. If you like it, I guess I can see why that would be a guilty pleasure. I thought it was terrible. I'm shocked that anybody could listen to music like that. But hey, if you like it, fair enough. That is your guilty pleasure. I wouldn't recommend anybody listening to that, but yeah, it was just dumb, awful. So yeah, I guess that's a good guilty pleasure. So that was a good one. Let's see. Oh, Christmas rapping by the Waitresses. Most Christmas music I can't stand, but I love this jam coming from commercial of 2017. Um, I had never heard of that song, and I listened to it, and yeah, it's just cheesy 80s stuff. I don't know. I mean, there's a place for that, right? I don't know that yeah, that's a guilty pleasure, I guess. I mean, for me, it would just be in its right place, 80s music. There's a time and a place for it. I don't know that I'd feel guilty listening to that and enjoying that. I thought it was cheesy. I don't know that I'd ever want to hear it again. So, but I guess that's a good one. This one would be arguably a good one too. Stone Temple Pilots. I know a lot of people. Oh, this is from 3145. Stone Temple Pilots. I know a lot of people despise them at the time and now. The despisement has never gone away for them. And I don't know if despisement is a word. I'm assuming it's not, but yeah. Despise them at the time for not being a true grunge band, in part because they hailed outside of Seattle and were considered plagiarizing posers from San Francisco. Uh-huh. But I found their first three albums very catchy and still play them loud to this day. Okay, that's a guilty pleasure. I think they're shit. STP, yeah, they're garbage. Again, just an opinion. That's a good one, obviously. You bring up a good one. Yeah, awful. Terrible. They're right up there with the Offspring for me. Just awful rip-off artists. Posers, self-important turds, all of that. And I'm sure I'll hear about that. Someone will disagree. Go ahead. Fine. But yeah, they're shit. Just an opinion, but they're shit. What's up, Yeshno? How's it going, buddy? Always good to see from Yeshno. What are you drinking in your avatar, by the way? Your thumbnail. What are you drinking there? Is that Red Bull or something? I don't know. You know what? I've only ever had Red Bull once. I couldn't drink. It was awful. Like it tasted like battery acid smells or something. I remember drinking it, and it reminded me of what a corroded, rusted out battery smells like. Anyway, I'm not saying that's what you're drinking, but it's kind of a silvery can. Every time I see your thumbnail, I think of Red Bull. Um, Attila, self-titled, Billy Joel Never Rocks. I mean, I've only heard bits and pieces of that because I know it's where Billy Joel started. I mean, from my memory, it's like the kind of hair metal, right? Like early goofy metal. Okay, yeah, I think Billy Joel himself would be a guilty pleasure for a lot of people. I'm not a Billy Joel fan, but I do like a couple of his songs. I don't know that I'd turn it down if I did the car test where you come up to the pedestrian. I'll call it the pedestrian test. I don't know that it would pass the pedestrian test. I don't know. I would play Billy Joel and wouldn't feel wouldn't feel embarrassed about it. Now Attila, yeah, I probably would. So, but again, I haven't heard it enough to really have a judgment on it. So, but I do remember. I think that's pretty much goofy hair metal. Shafi, how's it going, buddy? Any house pop songs from the 90s. I made a whole playlist of stuff like industry. Yeah, industry stand. I don't know. I mean, that's just that's like 90s progressive tech house, right? I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I'd feel guilt over that or any guilty pleasure whatsoever. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It has its place, I would say. Madonna, La Isla Bonita. Yeah, listen, Madonna, I think Madonna is I don't like her. I think she's a bore, jaw-breakingly boring type of bore. But I think most people on the earth can say that there's at least one Madonna song they really like. And I don't know that I'd feel comfortable blasting it out of my car during the pedestrian test. So now the I can see La Isla Bonita, like people being embarrassed by that. This is a good one, I think. This is a good guilty pleasure. For me, I guess it would be Holiday. Like when I hear Holiday, I'm like, yeah, this is a great tune. It just is. Madonna's real talent, I think. Well, I don't know if I want to compare her. No, I'm not going to make that comparison because I know I'll just hear shit for it. But there's a major influential figure of the 20th century that died 6 or 7 years ago. He also had this talent. I think there are artists in our world that their true talent is surrounding themselves with the talent. And that's what Madonna's good at. She's really good at, and someone else mentioned this during this conversation. I agree 100%. There are some artists that are just really good about finding hot producers and surrounding themselves with that talent. And Madonna's one of them. She's worked with Jelly Bean and back in the 80s. She worked with William Orbit. Madonna's best album, arguably, is Ray of Light, the only listenable one. And the reason for that is William Orbit. He made it sound that way. Madonna was desperately trying to get all kinds of various hot, in demand, cutting edge producers to do that album. And she finally went to Orbit, but he wasn't her first choice. Like she went to people like Boards of Canada and stuff and wanted them to produce. And they rightly declined. Of course they did. I think she tried to work with Aphex Twin too, and he laughed in her face, as he should. So William Orbit finally stepped up, and I have nothing bad to say about William Orbit. I think the shit he was doing in the late '80s and early '90s with the Gorilla label, I think Orbit is brilliant in his own way. So yeah, I understand Madonna. Like Ray of Light's a great song too, but I would argue that's more of a William Orbit song than a Madonna song. So she's just really good at surrounding herself with the right people. And yeah, there's another. I'm not even going to mention. I'll say it's a guy. I'll mention his name. He died in 2016, I want to say. You can probably figure it out. 2015, 2016. I'm sure you can figure out who I'm talking about. He also did a really good job of surrounding himself with talent. So I think, and particularly in Madonna's case, that was her big talent. Ian, what's up, dude? My guy Ian, how's it going, buddy? Oh, by the way, your Stranglers comments were awesome. I love what you said about the Stranglers. This Ian fella, people, saw the Stranglers back in the early 80s. So this dude he's seen the greats in their heyday, in their prime, and I'm jealous. I wish I could have seen the Stranglers back in '81, or I think that's the year you said you saw them. God, that would be cool. John Barry, James Bond soundtracks. It's not a guilty pleasure. I'm proud of it. Yeah, absolutely, man. Nothing wrong with that. But would you do it? Would it pass the pedestrian test? Ask yourself that, Ian. Would it do that? Would you pull up to a pedestrian and just smile and listen to it loudly and proudly? Ask yourself that. Apparently you would. Do you remember it reminds me, do you remember the Propeller Heads, Ian? Back in the mid 90s, they what was it? History Repeating. Do you remember this song they did with Shirley Bassey? It's like the whole album, that whole album, I think it was Decks and Drums and Rock and Roll or something. The name of the album. It was a pretty good album, but it was dedicated to like that soundtrack quality of music, but it was mixed with like that current big beat kind of sound in the 90s. I thought it was a pretty good album. And History Repeating was a very cool song. Obviously, Shirley Bassey being there would automatically take you to like a James Bondian universe, but I thought it was a pretty good song. Every time I think of James Bond soundtracks, I think of the Propeller Heads. But yeah, hey, no shame with that. No shame at all. Let's see our next. These last two comments are really cool. I thought these were really good comments. The darkness, permission to land. Whatever happened to them? Are they still around? Yeah, I can see being embarrassed by that. But the darkness kind of fills a void, so to speak. Uh, yeah, I think the darkness is we're appreciating a bygone era of a certain type of music, and they really hammered it hard and went over the top with it and had fun with it, and they did a good job. Ja Rule, I don't really know Ja Rule enough to have a comment on it. Justin Timberlake, okay, yeah, I can see that. He's definitely had a couple of songs where I've heard them accidentally. Like just recently, I was having lunch with a friend at a restaurant, and they were playing music, and this song came on, and I kind of liked it, and I Shazammed it, and it was Justin Timberlake. I was like, oh shit! So that's happened a few times with me. So yeah, I don't know that I. Yeah, I think Justin Timberlake might fail that uh, pedestrian test. Lincoln Park, yeah, oof, yeah. There's no situation I could listen to Lincoln Park. I think they're awful. No thanks. Same with Duran Duran. I can definitely see that being a guilty pleasure. I think Duran Duran is one of the most overhyped bands ever. I should have mentioned them in my overhyped, overrated list. They're awful. I do not get Duran Duran. People are so fucking excited to love those guys. Ugh, ugh. Lily Allen, I don't know that I've ever heard her. Maybe I have by accident. I didn't look her up prior to this video. I apologize. Lily Allen, I no clue who that is. No idea. I probably should keep my ear closer, even closer to the grindstone. I have no clue who that is. I love all of these albums, but usually people think that they are kids' music, poppy trash. As for the song list is endless. Mostly Kylie Minogue. I agree. Yes, like I like Kylie Minogue. And would it pass the pedestrian test? Probably not. If I was listening to a Kylie track on the street, I'd probably turn it down. I like Kylie though. I like her attitude. She has a sense of humor about what she does. And she's got some catchy as hell songs, man. Songs like Slow and she every once in a while she comes out with a really cool track. She did that song with Nick Cave, which was really cool. I respect Kylie, man. I like Kylie. And beyond that, in her day, is there a hotter woman that's ever graced our planet? Kylie Minogue might have the most beautiful ass of any human being that's ever been on this earth. So more love for Kylie because of that. Pink, yeah, Pink. No. Nelly Furtado. I can totally understand how those would be guilty pleasures. I think those would ascend into another realm, like obnoxious pleasures. Or Pink is terrible. I think she's so self-absorbed. Is she around anymore? I just remember she was so fucking full of herself when she was popular. I just remember she thought she was such hot shit, and I remember thinking, really, yeah, you aren't all that, lady. You need to get over yourself a little bit. You're not as half as hot and cool as you think you are. Yeah, not type of shit you would expect a 27-year-old guy to listen to. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you came up with some really good ones though. Kylie being the biggest one, I think. I like Kylie. But yeah, would she pass the pedestrian test? Probably not. So yeah, good on you there. Now, Liz Zillerod, how you doing, girl? Love you. Zillerod always comes up with the goods, man. She's always got brilliant shit to say. You came up with some great names on here, man. Some of these I'd never heard of. Liz says guilty pleasures. I guess I would have to say unexpected music choices. Good. That is perfect. Much better than the way I worded it. I feel little to no guilt over anything I listen to for the most part. I agree. I'm the same way. Let's see. I love me some Andrea Bocelli. I had never heard of her. I went and listened to this. Or Andrea. You would assume that's a woman. It's not. It's a man. I listened to Passion. She says Passion is such a lovely album. His voice is just wow. I agree. Like you've made a new fan of him here, Liz. I'd never heard of this guy. I was listening to that and I was like, Jesus, this is cool. No guilt, no guilt. Now, would it pass the pedestrian test though? Probably not. So brilliant. Thank you very much for bringing this guy up. I really liked it. He has an amazing voice. Thanks for introducing me to this. The Gap Band 4 is the shit. Yeah, I don't know. Like, is that a guilty pleasure? The Gap Band? I'll listen to that shit. I'd blast that. It's an instant mood lifter. Van Halen is an album that just makes me happy. The self-titled album. Yeah, Van Halen's one of those bands where you have to respect the musicianship and the skill, especially the Van Halen brothers. The guitar work and the drum work. It's like you can dislike the album and think David Lee Roth is a pretentious douche, which he was, but that was kind of part of the charm of them. I kind of, if you grew up in this time period too, Van Halen was huge. You couldn't get away from them. It's kind of hard to overstate how big Van Halen were in the late 70s, early 80s. Now, I was just a toddler during that time, but even I was aware of them. That's how big they were. Um, I agree. Van Halen, I don't know that they'd pass the pedestrian test. So, especially songs like Ice Cream Man or Hot for Teacher or something. It's like you're hearing these songs and they're really dumb and cheesy, but then you're hearing the drumming and the guitar work and you're like, damn, you have to respect it on some level. So good. There's a great inclusion there. It reminds me of playing video games at an arcade as a kid. Absolutely. Yes. Going to the nickel arcades, Van Halen's playing in the background, Loverboy. Would anyone think Loverboy is a guilty pleasure? I don't listen to Loverboy, but when you were 8, 9 years old in the early 80s and you're at a video arcade and Loverboy is playing, it's the perfect soundtrack. So, same with Journey. I was half expecting someone to say Journey here. I know some of you listen to Journey. I know you do. Don't lie about it. I know. I don't listen to Journey. I've never been a Journey fan, but let's see. I love me some disco. It always puts me in a good mood. Yeah, I can't help but to get cheery when listening to Sylvester. Step 2 is so vibrant, full of life. Again, I would blast that in my car. No embarrassment there. I think people who don't like disco are just kind of idiotic. I mean, in the 80s, in the late 70s, everyone was so busy trying to kill off disco, but I never agreed with that. To me, disco and it was the punk kids that tried to do that a little bit. And it was like, really? The punk and disco are cut from the same tree, man. It's cut from the same cloth. Like, to me, it's the same. It's the energy. I mean, what do you think punk kids were doing in the late 70s? They were going to discos. What do you think John Lydon was listening to? He was listening to disco music. I mean, Stranglers were making disco albums. The Clash were making disco albums. Mick Jones went and formed his own disco band with Big Audio Dynamite. So I've never been able to get the hate for disco. I love disco. I embrace it with open arms. The same gears in my mind turn as to when I listen to punk. It's the same fucking thing to me. It's the same energy, the same approach. It's about dancing. That's what punk music is essentially. It's just dance music. I don't know. People who want to kill off disco, whatever, they don't get it. That's their problem. The Saturday Night Fever soundtrack puts me in a mood. Love that album. Love that album. That might not pass the pedestrian test. So that's a great thing for you to mention. The Bee Gees. I mean, what a great band. Put them down all you want, but Jesus. I encourage anyone who is not that familiar with the Bee Gees, you just know them for Saturday Night Live, go dig into their catalog. They were brilliant songwriters and brilliant performers. And they were at their peak in the late 70s, of course, with Saturday Night Fever. The tracks they did for that soundtrack still sound good, still sound fresh. Bee Gees were a brilliant band. So I don't know that I'd turn that down at, you know, the Bee Gees would pass the pedestrian test. The rest of the album, maybe not. So that's a great thing for you to mention. Barry Gibb's high pitched falsetto ain't nothing to play with, man. Yeah, absolutely. The Gibbs were brilliant. Absolutely. Anyone who puts down the Bee Gees are just being ignorant. They haven't heard the Bee Gees. They made a lot more music than just disco. Brilliant songwriters and performers. Uh, Adriano Celentano's blah 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 blah. I don't know. Liz again. Thank you for recommending this. I'd never heard of this guy. I pulled this song up. What is this? Uh, Prison Colin, whatever the fuck that is. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. I listened to that song. I loved it. Is that a guilty pleasure? I'd play that in my car. Absolutely. I love this song. Thank you so much for mentioning this. This song is a jam that makes no sense whatsoever, and I love it. Yeah, I agree. Loved it. I listened when you mentioned this the other day. I listened to it 2 or 3 times in a row. I was really feeling it. Also a fan of Italian horror soundtracks. Yep, I can't help it. Theme from the Friday the 13th Part 3 by Michael Zager and Henry Manfredini is its own vibe. Yeah, absolutely. Soundtracks. I don't know that I don't know that I'd blast soundtracks in my car, but soundtracks are their own little world. I don't know that that's a guilty pleasure at all, but I hear what you're saying. I'll just straight up say I love horror disco. Yeah, horror disco is just goof. If you love horror music and disco, it's easy to love that, appreciate the cheese of that song. Candy Flip's cover of Strawberry Fields Forever, absolutely. I think that's one of the best Beatles covers I've ever heard. It also encapsulates that vibe, that early 90s rave, indie pop, indie dance vibe. Fantastic song. And I also want to say that Madstock album, Liz, how do you feel about that? The One Candy Flip album, is that the one? Did they do another one? I thought that was the only one. Maybe they did one other one, but I thought that was a pretty solid album for what it is. Bits of it haven't aged all that well, but I think by and large, it's a pretty good album. And this one, absolutely. Liz, this is the one, and this is why I wanted to end on this. Len's Steal My Sunshine. You took the words out of my mouth. That is the song that I was going to use. And I'll come up with another one of my own, but I love that song. And would it pass the pedestrian test? Maybe not. I don't know. I should play it. Maybe I'll play it tomorrow on my way to work and figure that out. And I'll pull up to a crosswalk. And if I turn it down, I guess it doesn't pass. But yeah, I love that song. When I hear that song come on, I'm like, oh my God. Great. The sampling and the vocals and the vibe. And the rest of that album is utter shit. Have you ever heard the rest of the album? I remember I got a promo of that. I don't know, back in the mid and late 90s. When did that come out? 96, 97, something like that. I remember I got a promo of the album and I was like, God, this is a cool song. Then I listened to the rest of the album and it was utter dog shit. It was terrible. But that song, awesome. You say it's such a cute and bubbly jam that I've enjoyed for a good minute. Yeah, I agree. It's Len Steal My Sunshine. So I'll just end. That was going to be my choice, but I'll end with this. This is probably an obvious choice, but I'll say Spice Girls. Would that pass the crosswalk test, the pedestrian test? Nah, it wouldn't. But you know what? I like the Spice Girls. I like them. I think they're funny. I think they have a great sense of humor about themselves. That's something that's key for me. That's why I don't like the Taylor Swifts of the world and these other pop tarts that pop up, is that they don't seem to have a sense of humor about themselves. The Spice Girls did and do. And there are plenty of Spice Girls tracks that I enjoy, and I think because of their approach and their attitude about themselves and their willingness to laugh at themselves is why I think they're cool. I like the Spice Girls, and they're hot too. That doesn't hurt. My favorite Spice Girl, Ginger. It's absolutely Ginger. Yeah, I mean, look at her. How adorable can you get, seriously? And she just seems to have the greatest sense of humor about herself, and she's self-deprecating, and yeah, she's just like Ginger is like my dream girl. So yeah, Spice Girls is my choice, but Len Steal My Sunshine was gonna be my choice. So I mean, there are plenty of other things I could probably mention, but just so this video doesn't see this video's already been going for over half an hour, and I wanted to keep it right at that point. So anyway, thank you for commenting. I will try to produce these questions in a way that you guys can see them and make them more visible. I'm sorry if you're not getting the notifications. I myself don't get all notifications when you guys comment, for example. So I will try to do better about posting these out and making them more visible, because I want you guys to see these questions and I want to get as many responses as I can possibly get. So I'm going to move on for today. Again, happy Super Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. I hope you do not watch the game, and fuck the Kansas City Chiefs. Until next time, goodbye.